The Nikon Z7 III has gradually shifted from a simple next-generation expectation into something more ambiguous and revealing. Instead of being discussed as a straightforward upgrade in Nikon's high-resolution lineup, it has become a lens through which the company's broader strategy is being questioned. The longer it stays absent, the more it stops feeling like a delayed product and starts feeling like a decision point. That is the core tension surrounding it today, not just what the camera will be, but whether it should exist in the form people expect at all. In a typical camera development cycle, especially for a major model in a well-established series, there is usually a visible progression toward release. Early industry chatter builds into more structured leaks, followed by prototype sightings, firmware traces, and regulatory approvals. These signals, even when incomplete, usually point in a coherent direction. With the Nikon Z7 III, that coherence is missing. Instead, there is a patchwork of information that does not form a stable picture. Some signals imply ongoing development, while others suggest hesitation or shifting priorities inside Nikon. This lack of clarity has changed the tone of the entire conversation. Rather than focusing on launch dates or exact specifications, discussions now revolve around intent. Is Nikon actively shaping the Z7 III as a core product, or is it gradually being pushed aside as other models take priority? That question becomes more pressing when the camera lineup around it is considered, especially the rise of hybrid-focused bodies that already cover much of the performance space the Z7 series once uniquely occupied. The rumor landscape itself reflects this uncertainty. One version of expectations frames the Nikon Z7 III as a disciplined continuation of Nikon's high-resolution philosophy. In that scenario, the camera would likely remain centered around a sensor in the 60-megapixel range, focusing on maximum image fidelity, dynamic range, and tonal precision. The improvements would be evolutionary rather than disruptive: faster sensor readout, better noise performance, refined autofocus accuracy, and more efficient image processing. This interpretation preserves the identity of the Z7 line as a stills-first tool built for photographers who prioritize detail over versatility. Another interpretation, however, suggests a more ambitious transformation. In this version, the Nikon Z7 III moves closer to hybrid or even semi-flagship territory. It could incorporate more advanced processing hardware, significantly improved autofocus intelligence, and possibly internal high-resolution video capabilities such as 8K recording. This would push the camera beyond its traditional identity and place it in direct comparison with more versatile systems in Nikon's own lineup. Instead of being a specialized stills camera, it would become a broader imaging tool competing across multiple categories. The problem is that neither of these directions has clearly emerged as dominant. The leaks do not converge into a single narrative. Instead, they conflict in ways that suggest uncertainty not just in public speculation, but potentially in internal positioning as well. When rumors are this divided, it often reflects a product whose final role has not yet been firmly defined. To understand why this matters, it helps to look at how the camera industry has evolved in recent years. The boundaries between photography and video have blurred significantly. Cameras are now expected to perform well in both domains, even if they are not explicitly marketed as hybrid systems. High-resolution sensors, fast readout speeds, advanced autofocus tracking, and strong video codecs are no longer niche features, they are baseline expectations in many segments of the market. This shift has made it harder for cameras with a single focused purpose to maintain a clearly separated identity. Nikon's own lineup reflects this change. The introduction of models like the Z8 has created internal overlap with what the Z7 III would traditionally represent. The Z8 already delivers extremely high resolution alongside fast performance and advanced video capabilities, effectively occupying a space that once would have been reserved for a high-end stills-focused body. This overlap introduces a structural challenge. If two cameras cover similar ground, their differences must be meaningful enough to justify their coexistence. From a strategic standpoint, this is where the delay of the Nikon Z7 III becomes more understandable. It may not simply be a matter of development time, but of positioning clarity. Nikon has to ensure that the Z7 III does not become redundant within its own ecosystem. If it overlaps too heavily with existing or upcoming models, it risks losing its purpose. If it diverges too much, it may drift away from what the Z7 series originally represented. At the same time, there is still a clearly defined audience for high-resolution, still-focused cameras. Landscape photographers, studio professionals, fine art creators, and commercial shooters continue to value maximum detail and dynamic range above hybrid versatility. For these users, a camera like the Nikon Z7 III is not about speed or video features, it is about precision and consistency. That segment may be smaller than the hybrid market, but it remains highly specialized and deeply committed. This is where the identity question becomes central. If Nikon chooses to preserve the Z7 lineage in its purest form, the camera becomes a statement in favor of specialization. Whether the Nikon Z7 III becomes a defining high-resolution tool or fades into strategic irrelevance depends entirely on how Nikon resolves that question. Until that decision becomes visible, the camera will continue to exist in a state of anticipation shaped not by specifications, but by uncertainty about its purpose.